On today's episode, I'll dive into every Blackhawks player's stats and analytics through the first half of the season.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Blackhawks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Do me a quick favor, please go and hit that like button. Jump in the comment section down below as well. Mailbag Monday, of course, is right around the corner. Hit me with your Blackhawks-related question, and I'll make sure to bookmark it and answer it on Monday's show. And last but certainly not least, gotta subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube if you haven't done so already. Not only will I be having Deep Dive 4.0, obviously, on today's episode, but coming out early next week, I'll be having my Blackhawks midseason grades episode, as well as going through my midseason top 20 prospect rankings. A lot of good stuff coming up on Locked On Blackhawks that you don't want to miss out on, so please make sure that you hit that subscribe button. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. Hope everyone's start to their week is off to a good start. I don't know if that was worded correctly. Regardless, do want to let you all know that I am recording this on Saturday afternoon. So this is prior to the Blackhawks game later this evening against the Edmonton Oilers. I just wanted to go through the stats through the opening 42 games of the regular season to get us a little bit closer to that midway mark and also keep things kind of aligned as I go through my deep dives during every 10 to 11 game stretch of the regular season. So these numbers that I'm going through here today, I am dropping this episode on Monday, but I don't know what's going down tonight. Hopefully it's a big Blackhawks win against the Edmonton Oilers. I don't know what those stats are going to be like. So just a quick reminder, all these numbers are coming through the opening 42 games of the regular season. But yes, it's time for Deep Dive 4.0 here on the Chicago Blackhawks as we have reached the midway point of the 2024-2025 campaign. I'll take a look at every Blackhawks player's stats and analytics through the first half of the season and talk a little bit deeper about them individually. Starting things off with the Blackhawks forward group, got to begin with none other than number 98, Connor Bedard, who is, of course, in the midst of a 9-game point streak, the longest active point streak in the NHL. And the biggest thing I have to say about Connor Bedard to begin Deep Dive 4.0 here, Blackhawks fans, is that he is damn good, and do not listen to anyone who tells you otherwise. And the proof has been in the pudding over these last handful of weeks, really since Anders Sorensen took over. Even though the Blackhawks haven't had a lot of team success ever since that nice 3-game winning streak early on when Sorensen stepped in as the interim head coach. Since then, it's been a pretty disastrous run for the Blackhawks. However, at least Connor Bedard has woken up, and as I'll talk about more here in just a moment, at least we finally have established a line mate along with him on the top line. But Bedard continues to be the driving force of this Blackhawks offense, the leading scorer in basically all of their metrics through 42 games. The only one he's not is in the goal scoring category. He's third on the team with 11 goals so far this year. However, he certainly had a nice uptick in that production over the last month or so as well, something that I mentioned during the first couple of deep dives that, listen, this kid's just too talented to be this snake bitten for too long, and that's exactly what's transpired here recently as Bedard has gotten over that hump and has gotten back to producing on a regular basis. He's now up to 38 points through 42 games on the year. As I mentioned, the Blackhawks leading point scorer by a 10-point margin, 10 points more than Teuvo Teravainen, who's second on the Blackhawks in points. Bedard also leads the Blackhawks with 27 assists on the year. And just as a reminder, Blackhawks fans, this kid is still the second youngest player in the NHL. His next point will be his 100th. There have only been 22 players in NHL history to record 100 points before turning 20 years of age. And oh yeah, he's doing this on one of still the worst offenses in the entire NHL and doesn't have a lot of help alongside him. So when I hear someone like Barstool Chief, who's fortunate enough to have a radio show on ESPN 1000 with Pat Boyle, and this isn't something I like to do, Blackhawks fans, but it's something I've told my close friends over the last few years, and this was just the final straw. for Barstool Chief to go on ESPN 1000 and say he wishes that the Blackhawks had the second, third, or fourth pick in the 2023 NHL draft is absolute hooey. How can you blast that out to a big audience when you're someone who doesn't come down to Blackhawks practices? You don't go to Blackhawks development camp. I never see you at Fifth Third Arena trying to learn more about this Blackhawks team. And you're going to go and knock Connor Bedard, who does not deserve the criticism he's gotten this year by any stretch. The only reason he's getting this criticism is because of the high-profile label he came into this league with. Basically, every other player on this Blackhawks roster deserves more criticism than Connor Bedard, and despite everything he's had to go through, he's almost up to a point per game now on the season with 38 points through 42 teams. Connor Bedard is damn good, and do not let anyone else tell you differently. Does he have flaws? Yes, and I'll get to them here in just a second when diving through some of these numbers, but he is undoubtedly on track to be a very special player in this league, and I really do not have any worries about Connor Bedard and his development at this point in time. But diving into some of his other numbers here, Bedard has 7 even strength goals on the year out of his 11. 7 have come at the even strength variety. That's 4th on the team. Would like to see him continue to grow those numbers up in the second half of the year. Does lead the Blackhawks, though, with 14 even strength assists. Another metric that I've talked about in the past with Bedard, the shooting percentage. That's now up to 10.9%. First time it's up into the double digits here on a Blackhawks deep dive of mine so far this season. Up to 101 shots on goal in 42 games. And look, I still think there's room for growth in both of those in terms of being more picky, calling his own number, and getting shots on cage. And I still think that shooting percentage can easily climb up to 12 and 13% before the end of the season. Bedard's averaging 19 minutes and 44 seconds of time on ice, top line center type of minutes as a 19-year-old. Area where he's probably struggled the most, Blackhawks fans, has been the faceoff dot. Only won 32% of his draws this year, which has not taken the leap that we wanted to see from last year. It's quite honestly still in the same boat. And as a 19-year-old, I'm not overly concerned about this, but it is definitely something to keep an eye on, considering the Blackhawks do have centers in their pipelines and a slew of draft picks and cap space to go and acquire big-name free agents. It is going to be interesting to see how Connor Bedard handles the center ice position over these next few years. What I will say is I do think he's gotten better on the defensive side of things, and I think the analytics kind of tell us that. 44.0 Corsi for percentage for Bedard this year. He's been on the ice for 20 goals for to 31 against. The defensive numbers have gotten way better. His plus-minus last year was absolutely out of control, and he's been on the ice for the goaltenders. Got sloppy there. Blackhawks goaltenders have a 91.1 on-ice save percentage when Connor Bedard is out there. And I know that's a little bit of a messy stat and a lot of things go into it, but as a center iceman, I do think that is still important and significant, and again tells me that Connor Bedard is making strides as a defensive-minded center. And we've seen him over the last couple of weeks make some really nice plays on the forecheck to force turnovers leading to goals. We've seen the two-way play kind of lead to his offense a little bit more here as of late. So across all metrics, I'm super, super stoked about the type of year that Connor Bedard has had, even though the Blackhawks team success hasn't been there still. The two areas where I really worry about Bedard the most, the faceoff circle and the lack of size. He gets hounded off the puck really easily and tries to do a little bit too much, thinking that he can dangle through grown men at this level. He's had struggles with that, and I think it is clear that he needs someone with size who can go to the front of the net, cough, cough, Tyler Bertuzzi, to have success in this league. Those are my two worries about Bedard. Everything other than that, he's been absolutely awesome. Do not let anybody tell you differently. Connor Bedard is damn good. Next forward, I want to get to Teuvo Teravainen, second leading scorer for the Blackhawks so far this season, up to 28 points, 9 goals, and 19 assists in 42 games. Those 19 assists are good for second on the team. Out of his 9 goals, though, Teuvo's only scored 4 even strength goals. So in 42 games, 4 even strength goals, that's not simply good enough. And quietly, a lot of his production has come on the power play. He's got 5 power play goals, which is second on the team, and 13 power play points. So out of his 28 points on the year, 13 of them have come on the man advantage. 15 points in 42 games from Teuvo Teravainen at 5-on-5. That's not good enough, even though he has picked up his play here as of late. Averaging 16 minutes and 23 seconds of time on ice. The analytics have been pretty solid for Teuvo, though. 46.1 Corsi for percentage is among the team leaders for Blackhawks forwards, but on the ice for 18 goals for to 24 goals against. He also plays on the penalty kill from time to time as well, which has been the biggest strength of this Blackhawks team. Kind of surprised to see goaltenders Blackhawks goaltenders have an 89.8 on-ice save percentage when Teuvo Teravainen is out there. Thought that was a little bit interesting, but again, kind of a messy stat. Next, we go to the third leading scorer for the Blackhawks at the halfway point, which is Ryan Donato, who has been outstanding. Played in 40 of the 42 games thus far, has 12 goals, which is second on the Blackhawks, along with 11 assists for 23 points. 11 even strength goals for Ryan Donato is probably the most impressive part about it. He's only got one goal on the man advantage, so it's not like he's been a power play merchant. He's been getting it done at even strength. And one thing I really love about it, something I've mentioned a ton on the show, is he's someone who just plays a simplified game, gets the puck on net, and good things tend to happen to him. He leads the Blackhawks with 170 shots on goal this year, but he's still shooting at a 12.4% clip. And again, there's nothing fancy about Ryan Donato. A lot of other Blackhawks forwards need to take a page out of his playbook. He's been averaging 14 minutes and 49 seconds of time on ice this year. Has had to kind of step in and play the center ice position, even though he truly isn't one. Has had decent success there for not being a center, winning 44.2% of his draws. I also like Ryan Donato providing a physical aspect in this Blackhawks forward group. He's second on the team with 73 hits, and the analytics are really good too. 45.9 Corsi for percentage, not good for NHL standards, but pretty good for Blackhawks standards. And he's been on the ice for 18 goals for to 22 against, pretty much an even metric at 5-on-5. For Ryan Donato. So really happy with the production out of number 8 for the Blackhawks so far this year. Fourth leading scorer for the Blackhawks, Tyler Bertuzzi, man, who's really gotten it going over the past month or so, along with Connor Bedard. He's now up to 22 points in 42 games on the season, team leading 14 goals along with 8 assists, 8 even strength goals as well, as tied for second on the team, while also leading the Hawks with 6 power play goals. Doesn't get a ton of shots on goal. He's not a high volume shooter, but he's someone that goes to the dirty areas, the front of the net, gets redirects, cleans up on rebounds, scores those greasy types of goals. So not surprised to see him only have 66 shots on goal, but does have a 21.2 shooting percentage because most of his attempts come from out in tight, averaging 15 minutes and 51 seconds of time on ice. Second line role mostly on the year for Burt until he got elevated to the top line. He and Bedard have worked together smashingly, chipped in for 41 hits. Honestly, not as physical as I thought he was going to be, but again, he is someone who is kind of notorious for getting off to slow starts, and that's certainly what happened to begin his Blackhawks tenure. Diving into the analytics, 45.0 Corsi for percentage for Bertuzzi, been on the ice for 20 goals for to 29 goals against, 88.7 on ice save percentage. I think is very depicting of the type of defense that he plays, which isn't a whole heck of a lot, if I'm being honest, but at the same point in time, the offensive-minded style that he does play is really needed in this Blackhawks forward group. So, yeah, he is kind of lackluster defensively and got off to a really slow start, but he has played marvelously and much better over the last month on the top line with Connor Bedard. And then the last player I'll get to here during segment 1, Blackhawks fans, is Taylor Hall, 5th leading scorer on the Blackhawks. 41 games played, of course, was healthy scratched when Luke Richardson was still here. Gotta wonder if that might have played an impact in him ultimately being fired. Hall's got 8 goals and 13 assists for 21 points on the year. Those 13 assists are good for 4th on the Blackhawks. 8 of his 10 goals on the season have come from the even strength variety, which is second on the team. Would like to see him, though, make a little bit more of an impact on the man advantage with his skating ability to skate the puck in the offensive zone and also his good offensive makeup. 11 even strength assists for Hall, though, is third on the Blackhawks team, been one of their best producers at 5-on-5. Does have 74 shots on goal with a 10.8 shooting percentage, so would like to get him a couple of more attempts there in the second half per game. Averaging 15 minutes and 15 seconds of time on ice. He's kind of been utilized in every role, all 4 lines for the Blackhawks so far this year. Does have a 47.2 Corsi for percentage, though, at even strength, which is second among all Blackhawks forwards, but on the ice for 20 goals for to 28 goals against. Very similarly to Tyler Bertuzzi with an 89.3 on ice save percentage. So a little lackadaisical defensively, but that's never what Taylor Hall was known for. Hopefully his consistency kind of picks up. We'll see how long he actually even winds up being a Blackhawk. But there are the top 5 leading scorers for the Chicago Blackhawks so far this year and their stats and analytics and some of my thoughts on them. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans, I'll get into the secondary scorers among the Blackhawks forward group. But first, real quick, I do got to talk to you all about Game Time. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. And one of my favorite memories from last year was going to a concert. The energy and the excitement were absolutely unforgettable. And now, Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets to your favorite events with their new feature called Game Time Picks. And Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And I personally have used Game Time since I was back in high school. It's always been the cheapest and easiest way for me to purchase all of my tickets, whether I'm going down to Wrigley Field to see a Cubs game, going down to the United Center to see the Blackhawks, or even if I'm traveling in another city and want to go see a game or a stand-up comedy event with one of my buddies. I always make sure to check the Game Time app first. I highly recommend you all go and download the Game Time app today. And when you do, use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $20 off with your first purchase. Yes, you can get $20 off to come and see Connor Bedard at the United Center this year. All you got to do, download Game Time and create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Game Time. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Real quick, just wanted to say thank you again to everyone for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen. Here to start off your week. For your second listen, make sure to go and check out the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast so that you can become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. And you can easily find the link to Locked On Fantasy Hockey down in the description, or simply search on YouTube and wherever you may be listening to your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Segment 2, getting into the depth forwards here for the Blackhawks, getting into their stats and analytics. Next up is none other than the captain, Nick Foligno, who's played in 41 of the opening 42 games this year, missed only one contest due to an illness. 10 goals on the season is good for fourth on the Blackhawks, along with 7 assists for 17 points. 8 of his 10 goals have come from the even strength variety, tied with Taylor Hall for second most on the Blackhawks. Not a lot of shots on goal like Tyler Bertuzzi. They're very similar players, and that's why I was screaming on the show for so long for Connor Bedard to get an opportunity with Tyler Bertuzzi, because Bedard fared the best last year with Nick Foligno. Those two have a lot of similar characteristics. Bertuzzi is obviously the higher upside offensive-minded player at this point in time, but like Tyler Bertuzzi, Nick Foligno is not a high-volume shooter. He does a lot of his best work from in tight. He only has 56 shots on goal in 42 games this year, but is converting at a 17.9% clip, while averaging 16 minutes and 49 seconds of time on ice. And he's actually, I got to give Nick Foligno a lot of credit for this, and I don't think enough people talk about it. He's been the best center iceman for the Blackhawks this year, and he's not a center iceman. He's someone who usually plays the wing, but having to play with Bedard from time to time this year, and mostly last year, we saw him take a lot of, especially defensive zone faceoffs. Foligno's won 51.2% of his draws this year, tops among all Blackhawk centers. He also leads the team with 110 hits. Really good analytics, too, for Nick Foligno compared to the rest of the Blackhawks. 47.0 Corsi for percentage, third among Blackhawks forwards. 19 goals for to 31 against. That disparity has become a little bit more lopsided over these last few weeks since Andrew Sorensen has taken over. Since he's been the interim head coach, yes, the Blackhawks have more offensive abilities, but their defensive shutdown style has kind of gone awry, and as a result, the duo of Nick Foligno and Jason Dickinson, who usually do a lot of good things defensively, have kind of struggled a little bit as a result. 85.2 on-ice save percentage for Blackhawks goaltenders when Nick Foligno's out there. That's the worst among all Blackhawks forwards, something I did not expect to see. So defensively, he has not been as reliable as he was last year, or even as he was previously under Luke Richardson earlier on this year. But he is still going about his business the right way. He is still chipping in the physicality department and leading by example for the Blackhawks team. The goal scoring has still been there for where he's at in this stage of his career. The playmaking, the speed, it just isn't going to be there for Nick Foligno, but it's hard to have those expectations that they are. Next up, we got Ilya Mikheyev, who's played in 40 games on the season. Really has found some nice consistency over the last month or so. Up to 8 goals and 6 assists for 14 points on the year, and has been playing with Connor Bedard and Tyler Bertuzzi on the top line. A couple of different stints over the last couple of weeks. Mikheyev, how about this, Blackhawks fans? Not only is Ilya Mikheyev the only Blackhawks player with a positive plus-minus, he's a +5, leading that category by a huge margin. Offensively, he's picked it up and has been one of the most reliable defensive forwards for the Blackhawks, too. 7 of his 8 goals have come from the even strength variety. He's also the only Blackhawks player with a shorthanded goal this year, shooting at 12.3%, getting success at a nice clip, but only 65 shots on goal, especially playing on the top line. I think Ilya Mikheyev has to be a little bit more aggressive and have more of a shooting mentality. Has a forward-leading 47.6 Corsi for percentage on the year, and has been on the ice for 20 goals for to 20 against at even strength. That's tops on the Blackhawks in terms of plus-minus metric, and Blackhawks goalies have a 90.5 on-ice save percentage when Mikheyev's out there. Really good stuff out of Ilya Mikheyev in his first year with the Blackhawks. Next, we got Jason Dickinson, played in 41 of the 42 games so far, 7 goals, 6 assists for 13 points. The offensive numbers have taken a little bit of a dip so far this year. However, all 7 of his goals have come from the even strength variety, and he's still shooting 16.7%. The problem is he's only got 42 shots on goal in 41 games. He's still converting like he is a certified goal scorer. We just got to get him more shots on net regularly. And quite honestly, that's a common theme for all of these Blackhawks forwards. I'm pretty sure everyone I just talked about is shooting double digits on the year. They're converting at a good clip. They're just regularly getting like 22 or 23 shots on net. They got to take the simplified play that's right in front of them a little bit more often. Dickinson also has dropped down in the faceoff dot this year, down to 47.7%, has chipped in with 66 hits, 45.2 Corsi for percentage, been on the ice for 21 goals for to 27. Again, still pretty solid for the type of role that he plays. 89.0 on-ice save percentage, though, like I said with Nick Foligno, their defensive success has taken a little bit of a dip under Sorensen. Now getting down to the fourth line, we come to Lukas Reichel, who's played in 35 of the 42 games this year. Do not agree how he's been utilized. 3 goals, 8 assists for 11 points for Lukas Reichel. -7 plus-minus rating is, believe it or not, one of the better on the Blackhawks team. 3 even strength goals for him. All 3 of his goals have come at 5-on-5, but 3 in 35 games isn't anything noteworthy, even though I think how he's being utilized certainly plays a part in that. Shooting only 6.8%. There's someone who's shooting below 10%. It's Lukas Reichel. However, only 44 shots on goal in 35 games. I don't ever think he's going to be a goal scorer in this league, but I know he's more capable of a shooter than that. Averaging just 12 minutes and 25 seconds of time on ice, basically stuck in a fourth-line role. Do like to see, though, that it looks like he's going to be playing with Colton Dach and Frank Nazar on the same line here tonight against the Edmonton Oilers. Would love for that trio to have success and to get Lukas Reichel out of a permanent fourth-line role. I also don't agree that he's been playing the center ice position. He's playing the wing tonight with Dach and Nazar. Love to see that. He's been playing center basically all year, and he's only won 37.1% of his draws because he's not a center iceman, and we've known that. We've seen in his first couple of stints, he's had his best success while playing the wing. It's just not happening here for whatever reason. 43.7 Corsi for percentage for Lukas Reichel. Has been on the ice, though, for 10 goals for to 13 against. Like, his defensive prowess is growing, and he has become more reliable in the defensive areas. Blackhawks goalies have a 92.4 on-ice save percentage when Lukas Reichel is out there. Like, he is more reliable defensively. I just don't think that's ever going to be his forte in this league. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe Kyle Davidson and this Blackhawks coaching staff is going about things right. I just personally don't think that is the case. Next, we got Pat Maroon, played in 38 of the 42 games. He's been a good veteran piece. I really do enjoy Pat Maroon. 2 goals, 8 assists for 10 points, 38 shots on goal, only converting a 5.3% clip, averaging 11 minutes and 41 seconds of time on ice. The only Blackhawks forward with fewer minutes per game than Lukas Reichel. Has chipped in for 71 hits, though. That's third among all Blackhawks players. 44.5 Corsi for percentage for Maroon. Like Reichel, though, even though the Corsi isn't the best, he's only been out there for 16 goals against compared to 12 for. And Blackhawks goalies have a 91.7 on-ice save percentage. So Maroon has been reliable in his own end. That line has had good puck movements from time to time this year. Getting the finished product, though, is still a bit of an issue. And then last but certainly not least, we come to Philip Kurashev, Blackhawks fans, who's played in 31 of the opening 42 games on the season. His tally just 3 goals and 2 assists for 5 points and a -28 plus-minus rating. That is not a misread. -28 is Philip Kurashev on the season. Only 2 even strength goals in 31 games played. Only 35 shots on goal, shooting just 8.6%. Does not look like the same player that put up over almost 60 points along with Connor Bedard on the top line last year, still getting a pretty good opportunity, averaging 15 minutes and 5 seconds per game. What I will say is because of the lack of center depth the Blackhawks have, Kurashev's had to play the center ice position a little bit more than he's probably comfortable at. And like Lucas Reichel, I don't think he's a center. I will give him credit, though, for fighting to win 48.9% of his draws on the year. That's second among Blackhawks skaters. The analytics are absolutely awful, though. 41.9 Corsi for percentage for Kurashev. He's been on the ice for 4 goals for to 25 against at even strength. 4 goals for in 31 games to 25 against. Blackhawks goalies have an 88.0 on ice save percentage. And the cherry on top, Blackhawks fans, was that absolutely awful play that Philip Kurashev had last night, or I guess you all are listening to this when I drop it on Monday, on Friday night against the Detroit Red Wings, where he's literally just standing there like his controller died. Gets an opportunity back in the lineup to show this coaching staff that he's going to play with a chip on his shoulder. He's not down on himself. He's going to put his best foot forward. Instead, he did the exact opposite, and I promise you, Philip Kurashev is going to be stapled back to the bench tonight against the Oilers, and who knows what his future looks like. It's not going to be a long one here in Chicago, I'll tell you that, which is super, super disappointing. But breaking down the Blackhawks forwards here, as far as their best forwards on the season, Connor Bedard undoubtedly has been their best player. There is no other way around it. Tyler Bertuzzi and Taylor Hall have been really good offensively. Hall's analytics are better than I thought. His speed has been huge for this Blackhawks offense. Consistency, yes, still an issue, but their added offense, especially under Sorensen, has been much better, and it's been needed. Getting Bertuzzi established with Bedard on the top line has been absolutely huge. Defensively, though, they have been absolutely concerning. The other 2 forwards I would give a shout-out to, Ryan Donato and Ilya Mikheyev, have been quietly excellent for the Blackhawks this year on both sides of the ice. Both of them deserve huge shout-outs. Worst forwards for the Blackhawks this year, Bert and Hall defensively have not been very good, but undoubtedly the worst forward has been Philip Kurashev. He has been a huge nothing burger for this team this year, and that's really hurt them. I would say Jason Dickinson and Nick Foligno's defensive prowess has definitely taken a step back this year under Anders Sorensen. I don't know if that's necessarily their fault, but I would say those two have definitely taken a little bit of a step back. And Teuvo Teravainen's lack of consistency. I think 11 of his 28 points have come in 4 games on the season, Blackhawks fans, and I think he only has 15 even strength points in 42 games. That simply hasn't been good enough for the money we're paying him, for the role that he's playing. He needs to do a little bit more, and everyone really, besides Connor Bedard, needs to work on their consistency. But there is my deep dive into the Blackhawks forward group. Coming up in just a moment, Blackhawks fans. Getting into segment 3, I'll talk about the Blackhawks defensemen, and we'll talk about their analytics and statistics through the opening 42 games of the season. But first, I do got to talk to you all real quick about not about game time, stupid me, about FanDuel, baby, because NFL postseason action is underway. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are simply better with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can start the postseason strong with $200 worth of bonus bets guaranteed. Yes, you heard me right. $200 worth of bonus bets, whether your first bet wins or loses. And FanDuel now has so many ways for you to pick up a W. Personally, I love betting on money lines and how much points each team is going to score. However, FanDuel also has bets for touchdowns, player props, game specials, and much, much more. And to go and take advantage of this amazing offer, be sure to visit FanDuel.com right now in order to join today. Again, that's FanDuel.com for your chance to win $200 worth of bonus bets guaranteed. So make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. Segment 3, time to turn the corner and talk about the Blackhawks defensemen through the first half of the 2024-2025 regular season. Starting things off, we got to begin with number 72, Alex Vlasic, who continues to develop himself into a #1 defenseman right in front of our eyes. He's also the leading point scorer among Blackhawks defensemen this year. His offensive development has been absolutely amazing. The amount of speed that Alex Vlasic has as well. I'm waiting for JFresh Hockey to drop his latest speed burst graphic on X. The last time he dropped them, Alex Vlasic was among NHL defenseman leaders in 20+ mile per hour speed bursts. So up to that point in the season. And for a 6'7" defenseman, it's not consistency skating, but for him to get to that top level speed when he really gets going, certainly noteworthy for a guy of his length. I never thought he was going to be that capable of a skater. But getting into Alex Vlasic's numbers here, he's played in all 42 games in the first half of the season, has tallied 2 goals and 15 assists for 17 points. I actually believe that's tied him. I'm going to have to go. Has he already passed it? He might have already passed it, but if I don't have this correct on the show, Blackhawks fans, I'm going to get very upset with myself. Unfortunately, I can find all these numbers usually pretty fast because I just have all these pages already loaded up on my phone because I've visited them so many times. Alex Vlasic he has now passed with 17 points. Now has a new career high already in just the first half of the season. He had 16 points last year. That was previously his career best. 15 assists, third on the Blackhawks. Has also only taken 6 penalty minutes on the year. 3 minor penalties for Alex Vlasic. For a guy who plays nearly half the game, the Blackhawks are usually defending for a majority of these games. He's stuck in his own end in a defensive-minded role. For him to only have 3 minor penalties in the first half of the year is absolutely noteworthy. Has scored his first career power play goal. One of his 2 tallies this year has come on the man advantage. I also like to see that Alex has 8 power play assists, which is third among all Blackhawks skaters. And while Seth Jones was out, he really stepped up into that role and didn't look uncomfortable. He looked like he could handle that role. And I never thought Alex Vlasic was even going to be a power play 2 type of guy when the Blackhawks first drafted him. So for him to have that skill set is certainly noteworthy. 67 shots on goal. The shooting department is one area where I really would like to see Alex Vlasic work because he's so big. You would think he has to have this booming slapper. We just really haven't seen that. And I don't know if he possesses it or not, but it is certainly something to work at. He's shooting only 3% on the season, averaging 23 minutes and 40 seconds of time on ice, taking a big leap here in his second full-time year at the NHL level. That's good for 24th in the NHL, by the way. And Vlasic has chipped in for 84 block shots, second on the Blackhawks. Does have 27 hits as well. For a 6'7" guy, maybe you'd like him to be a little bit more physical, but that's not really his style. He's more so of someone who just knows how to use his body and his frame to his advantage, to separate players from the puck, to create some space for himself, to get the puck to a teammate. He's more physical in those ways, but he is capable of holding his own along the boards and in front of his goaltender. He also leads the Blackhawks with 26 takeaways, which is exceptional. 43.0 Corsi for percentage for Vlasic this year. Not that surprising given the Blackhawks' lack of team success in that category, and also he's someone who usually plays a defensive-minded role. Has been on the ice for 29 goals for to 42 goals against. That margin has gotten wider since Anders Sorensen has taken over, so not as sturdy as he once was under Luke Richardson. But again, the Blackhawks did need to do something to get this offense woken up, to make them a little bit more lively and at least watchable. So some of the defensive numbers for all of these guys and as a team have taken a little bit of a hit as a result. 88.6 on ice save percentage when Vlasic is out there. Again, it's a little bit of a messy stat. I don't think that's because he's been poor defensively, but I do think there is still more stability for him to be had. There have been some shoddy games here and there, and I think that's been more common over the last month or so, which again is probably attributed to Sorensen. But the consistency, which isn't that unusual for a 23-year-old, that's one thing that I have noticed about Alex Vlasic. So it's just some little things to clean up on, but other than that, he's been absolutely exceptional. Next, we go to Seth Jones, who's played in 26 of the 42 games this year, 3 goals and 11 assists for 14 points. So some nice offensive production when he has been healthy, but defensively still hasn't really been all that solid. 2 power play goals of his 3 goals. Love to see Seth always producing on the man advantage. The Blackhawks need him producing in that area. 51 shots on goal in 26 games. That's what I like to see out of Seth Jones. Shots on net with regularity. Not that far off from Alex Vlasic despite missing 16 games. 25 minutes and 3 seconds of time on ice is what Seth Jones is currently averaging. Good for 7th in the NHL. Chipped in for 49 blocks and 26 hits, along with 13 takeaways, 46.4 Corsi for percentage, better than what I thought it was going to be for Jones, and has been on the ice for 19 goals for to 21 goals against. So even though, again, he is not a very good defender, or at least consistency-wise. He has good games, then he has absolutely brutal ones. He's still providing his worth on the offensive side of the ice. Yes, I want him to tighten up in his own zone, but to say that Seth Jones doesn't provide value to his Blackhawks team, or even that he's flat out bad, is absolute hooey. And Blackhawks goaltenders do have a 91.4 on-ice save percentage with him on the ice. Next, we go to Connor Murphy, played in 38 of the opening 42 games, is currently out due to injury. Hopefully that won't be too long-term for him. Has tallied 1 goal and 12 assists for 13 points, Nice offensive production, though, out of Murphy this year. Those 12 assists are good for 5th on the Blackhawks, and because he has been a nice offensive producer, he's -4 on the year, which is 3rd among all Blackhawks skaters in plus-minus. 38 penalty minutes, though, for Connor Murphy. That's kind of the difference between he and Vlasic. Murphy plays that shutdown role, and he is a little bit more physical and aggressive, but he takes more penalties than Alex Vlasic does. That's the one downside. Has chipped in for 12 even-strength assists, though, which, believe it or not, is 2nd among all Blackhawks skaters. Good on you, Connor Murphy, with 45 shots on goal as well in 38 games. Noteworthy for a guy who's known for his defense. Averaging 20 minutes and 33 seconds of time on ice. That's taken a boost compared to the last couple of years. Leads the Blackhawks with 93 block shots. Is also 4th with 70 hits. 45.9 Corsi for percentage, and has been on the ice for 26 goals for to 31 goals against. 90.2 on-ice save percentage. A lot of good stuff out of Connor Murphy this year. Huge bounce-back campaign out of him. Next, we go to TJ Brodie. Played in 39 of the opening 42 games. 2 goals, 7 assists for 9 points. Offensively, he has honestly chipped in for more than I thought he would and has picked it up over these last few weeks. But defensively, remains a huge liability. -18 on the season. At least he does a decent job of staying out of the penalty box. Only 6 minor penalties for Brodie in his opening 39 games with the Blackhawks. Only 16 shots on goal. Doesn't really give you much from the blue line, but is shooting 12.5%. Averaging, though, 15 minutes and 54 seconds of time on ice. And this is a guy who had played 20 minutes per game every year the previous 13 years in the NHL. For him to have to be down that much because of his lackluster defense, certainly notable. 45 block shots for Brodie. Has only chipped in for 13 hits as well. Not really physical at this stage of his career. 45.6 Corsi for percentage, like Seth Jones, honestly, is better than what I thought it would be. But here's the real kicker for TJ Brodie. He's been on the ice for 14 goals for at even strength to 33 goals against. That is absolutely brutal, with an 88.3 on-ice save percentage, considering he's getting paid nearly $4 million for 2 years' time. Yeah, that is just simply not good enough. Next, we go to Nolan Allen. He's played in 35 of the opening 42 games. Did score his first NHL goal not all that long ago, and has chipped in for 6 assists with 7 points. -9 plus-minus rating with only 14 penalty minutes, which I think is really solid out of a first-year NHL player. Like TJ Brodie, though, doesn't really give you much offensively. Only 12 shots on goal in 35 games, averaging 15 minutes and 12 seconds of time on ice. Does have 45 block shots. Only 13 hits, though. And considering how physically mature Nolan Allen is, I do think he needs to grow a little bit more of a mean streak in him. Only 13 hits in 35 games. Not as many as I thought he was going to have. 43.6 Corsi for percentage, been on the ice for 18 goals for to 29 goals against, 88.7 on-ice save percentage. I like Nolan Allen, but when you take those numbers and you compare them to Wyatt Kaiser, who I round things out with, Wyatt Kaiser's analytics are absolutely smashing Blackhawks fans, and I know he hasn't produced the offensive numbers that I thought he was going to, and hasn't really... Nolan Allen has produced more points than him. That surprises me, even though that is the case. If you were to ask me which one I want right here, right now, I'm taking Wyatt Kaiser, Blackhawks fans, because of his speed, because of his style. He plays how you want defensemen to play in today's day and age. Aggressive, jumps up into the play offensively, and holds his own on D. Does he still make turnovers from time to time? Yes. He's not perfect. He's in his first full NHL campaign, or what really should be it. But his numbers have been really, really good, despite only having 3 points, 1 goal, and 2 assists in 32 games played. He's -2 on the season in terms of plus-minus, 2nd among all Blackhawks skaters. And again, I know that isn't like the most determining stat or anything, but it's noteworthy when you compare to the rest of these Blackhawks players. He also only has 14 penalty minutes, so despite being undersized and not as rugged and able to handle NHL grown men right here, right now, like Nolan Allen is, he has the same amount of penalties that Nolan Allen has so far this year, while having 40 shots on goal in 32 games, offers much more offensively, even though he only is shooting 2.5%. That is something to work on. Averaging 17 minutes and 44 seconds of time on ice, I think he's the much more capable top 4 player right here, right now. Has also chipped in for 56 block shots. Despite playing in only 32 games, he's third on the Blackhawks in that category. He also has 35 hits, despite not being like the biggest guy. And if you look at him and Nolan Allen, you would definitely think Nolan Allen has more hits between the two of them. Wyatt Kaiser has 3 times the hits that Nolan Allen does this year. He also has 15 takeaways, which is second on the Blackhawks. He has a team best 48.1 Corsi for percentage and has been on the ice for 15 goals for to only 16 against at even strength with a team high 93.1 on ice save percentage. And I know I'm not an analytics guy in terms of the end all be all. You don't look at analytics as the full picture. They help tell you. But I watch this Blackhawks team night in and night out, and these analytics absolutely match up with my eye test of Wyatt Kaiser. And why I'm so fired up about this Blackhawks fans is because there is no world in which this kid, who could be a piece of your future, should sit behind TJ Brody or Alec Martinez. There is absolutely no reason. It's a bad coaching decision, and it's just bad front office work by bringing in both Martinez and TJ Brody by Kyle Davidson when they didn't need to. We knew there were going to be a ton of defensemen trying to arrive on the scene. And Wyatt Kaiser's not getting regular reps at the NHL level when he has the best analytics out of any Blackhawks defenseman and arguably any Blackhawks player this year. You're not playing him because you're playing a 40-year-old defenseman. It makes absolutely no sense. That's why I'm fired up about this. I'm fired up on today's episode because I won't take any Connor Bedard slander, and Wyatt Kaiser needs to be in the lineup, man. These are impressive numbers, and I know he only has 3 points in 32 games. Quite honestly, if you showed me just the analytics, I'd say he probably has double-digit points this year. Like, I think there is so much room for growth. There's so much room for him still to grow. I'm really excited about Wyatt Kaiser. Even though maybe not a lot of people are, I'm stoked about the kid. But as far as the best and worst defenseman for the Blackhawks this year, Alex Vlasic has absolutely been their best defenseman. Connor Murphy definitely deserves a shout out. So does Wyatt Kaiser. Wyatt, especially in terms of the leap that he made from when we saw him first on the NHL scene last year. Leaps and bounds. He looks more comfortable in all facets of the game. Worst defenseman for the Blackhawks this year, TJ Brody undoubtedly has been the worst. Analytically, it doesn't say Seth Jones, but the eye test, I know what Seth has done, especially since he's returned from that right foot injury. It has not been very consistent for him in his own end. So, yeah, that takes care of Deep Dive 4.0 on the Chicago Blackhawks as we reach the midway point of the 2024-2025 regular season. Again, thank you all for joining me on the show. Be sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free right now, wherever you may be listening to your podcast, and to go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube so that way you don't miss out on any of the great Blackhawks content that I'll be posting throughout this week and throughout the rest of the regular season. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can go and find me on X at Jack Bushman2, but be sure to go and follow my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. So until the next episode, everyone, enjoy the rest of your Mondays. I keep forgetting that I'm going to be posting this in a couple of days. Enjoy the start of your week, Blackhawks fans. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.